Hi, Siri. I'm looking for a new podcast, one that preferably is hosted by a UF Hall of Famer, one that airs every weekday that would bring me everything I need to know about the Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions. Siri, is there such a show?
Have you heard of Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or any podcast platform?
Oh my gosh, why didn't I think of that? UF Hall of Famer Shane Matthews has a show every weekday. I'm going to go check it out tomorrow. Thanks, Siri.
Good morning. Welcome to a Wednesday edition of the program, Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. This portion of the program, we're going to have JC on. We'll get his thoughts on what's going on in the world. And it's tape, folks. But then live, the second portion of today's show will be live with Kyle Crooks, who's also one of the voice of the Gators, along with Eric Fawcett from GatorCountry.com. So sit back and relax, drink a cup of coffee, and we'll go from there. But JC, good morning. You're on the Titan Number Hotline. What do you think about that?
Ah, man, it's just a miracle. We can do this. The only thing I regret is that we won't know right now when this is – well, this segment, we won't know how Ben Shelton did as he gets ready to play in the
that's very true. Very true.
But they can talk about it, and all we're going to do is add to what we would have already known. And all I'll say about Ben is that he is far and away exceeding expectations for where he is in his career right now, man. I mean, he just turned pro. I saw this guy playing tennis at Hawkstone Country Club, I don't know, a year and a half ago. It wasn't long ago. Here in Gainesville, dude. And I mean, it's just unbelievable to think that he's gone from here to the University of Florida, won a national title, and then is in the quarterfinals at one of the four majors. QB, you got any idea what that's? I mean, we talk about ascension. We talk about how great Joe Burrow is, how great Josh Allen is, how great Pat Mahomes. This is probably better than all of it when you think about it, because of how difficult tennis is and how few players are at this level in the world. So I'm just
here's what I'll say to that. I've met Ben Shelton a couple of times. Well, met him once, but I've been around him.
Oh yeah,
and I've been around a lot of tennis players. He's by far the most athletic tennis player I've ever seen.
Oh yeah.
So I think he's going to do very, very, very well as a professional tennis player. We have a text on the Titan Mar text line.
Do?
Well, it was text yesterday because I get them all hours of the night, JC.
Yeah.
But this one's kind of cool. This is from one of our listeners, Jason Posey from Pensacola, he's a truck driver.
Oh.
And he drives throughout the country listening to our show.
Wow.
And he was driving through Beaumont, Texas, came across this high school stadium and thought he'd share these pictures. What's interesting, I can't share their pictures, but he took pictures of this high school stadium. It is the exact stadium where we're practicing football, but not in Beaumont. So I think in the state of Texas, through their they call them independent school districts, because the stadium will have like a name like Alachua ISD. So like I'm using Alachua County, for example, Alachua Independent School District. But the blueprint for all these big stadiums for these high schools are all the same, because there's like 5 of them in the area that we've practiced at. They're all identical, but they seat about 25 or 30,000. It's crazy.
There's one in Allen, Texas, where the Allen high school team plays. That was the home of Kyler Murray. Okay, that stadium preceded the one in McKinney, Texas, which has 3 local teams playing in it.
Well, that's what all these that we're practicing at, 2 to 3 schools play at them.
This stadium in McKinney hosts 3 high schools and was funded purely. Now think about this for a minute. The local taxes, the local taxpayer paid for this stadium in McKinney, Texas, and here we are in Gainesville, and we can get a Frisbee golf park maybe paid for by the taxpayer. I mean, it's incredible. $60 million funded by local taxes to high schools. You talk about commitment to youth sports.
Well, here's the thing, JC.
It's a different world.
we know the state of Texas has a lot of money, but you've seen the facilities in the state of Mississippi that has no money, and what they're like. They're unbelievable. They blow away the state of Florida.
Yeah. Well, it's too bad. I wish the local communities, and I'm not saying all of them don't support, but when you compare, well, it's not even fair to compare. So I'm not going to waste our time with that. But we know what it's like. You're seeing it firsthand. Did you go to practice in the McKinney or Allen, Texas facility, or are you closer to downtown?
We were practicing in Justin, Texas.
Okay, Justice.
Yeah. I don't know all the damn towns. They're all look the same.
Everywhere. Yeah, they're all the same, but the stadiums are just phenomenal. They exceed some 1AA. I mean, you wouldn't find the same thing at some of these small colleges. No, it's great. You got to tip your cap to the people of that area. They love that endeavor. They love it.
Yeah. Tonight, the Gators play at home against South Carolina, who's a bad basketball team. Gators should win that. They're big favorites. But then the gauntlet starts. It's probably the most difficult stretch of Gator basketball of all time. When you have Alabama, Tennessee, and K-State. And you throw in Kentucky, like the following week is Kentucky. I mean, Kentucky is Kentucky. So, if we can just win one of those games.
I know the schedule maker didn't do anybody any favors, QB. I don't think we knew that Alabama would be this strong. We knew they'd be good. But, my God, playing them on the road it's either after or before the Kentucky game just doesn't seem right. It just seems like this isn't fair. And here's Kansas State coming in at 5 in the country, and we all know the story about Keontae Johnson. So, man, it's a tall order for Florida. I just hope they can, stay on the court. I think they will compete hard, and beating South Carolina will help. But, dude, you can't ask for 4 schools. You can't line them up any tougher than that in the country. You can't. They're all ranked in the top 8. It's so
it looks like the Orlando Guardians are signing punter Johnny Townsend, or the brother of Tommy Townsend. So it's a cutthroat business, JC. I sit in these meetings, and I'm just going, man, because when as a player, you just never know what day or what time of the day your job is axed. And I'm sitting in these meetings now where we're doing the axing, and it's
that's tough.
It's tough, man. It's tough, but he will definitely help our team for sure. I see you wearing your Bengals hat. Does that mean you're rooting for the Bengals?
I think it does. I think, we talked about this with Seth on Monday. Seth Hart.
Somebody told me you got upset because he was calling you JR.
Oh, no, not in the least. I wasn't upset at all.
But so he probably was thinking, who shot JR, right?
No, I wasn't upset at all, but I figured Tammy or somebody would say something in his ear. I wasn't going to interrupt him because his thoughts were so, they were so broad, and I didn't want to distract him. But he was fine. And the thing about it was, we talked of the ascendance of the Bengals as an organization. I mean, under Joe Burrow, or with Joe Burrow, I think they've won 5 playoff games. Under Marvin Lewis, they did not win 1 in over a decade. And here's an organization that went into Buffalo, beat a team on its home field by as bad a margin in every statistical category as I can remember in the playoffs, QB. They completely dominated that game. And I think it just shows you the ability of Joe Burrow, his anticipation, his accuracy, the way he manages a football game, the way he plays that position. And it goes so unnoticed in the AFC because we've always talked about Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes and whoever in this guy. But this Joe Burrow is one of the best stories you'll read about, because we all forget that in his first year at LSU, when he left Ohio State to play for the Tigers, he was a non-factor until Joe Brady showed up. Joe Brady showed up and helped him get his game in gear, and now look at him. He's one of the 3 best quarterbacks in the league, without a doubt.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. There's no question.
I mean, you don't need me to tell you that. You know the position. You've watched.
Yeah, I've loved Joe Burrow. I said it on the show yesterday. I've said it on shows for years, the last couple of years. He's as close to Tom Brady as you will find. The difference is he is extremely athletic, where Brady was not.
And he had a knee injury. He had a knee injury.
Knee injury.
This brings some questions also about Buffalo QB. They've got to find some running backs. They've got, where was
I thought the difference in that game was the line of scrimmage, not so much everything else. I was surprised that Buffalo, their offensive line got manhandled,
Man,
and then Cincinnati, who was missing some starters,
they couldn't do anything.
Care of the line of scrimmage.
Where was Ed Oliver? Where was Ed Oliver?
That I think that game was determined. I mean, obviously Burrow was outstanding, but I believe the line of scrimmage is what determined that game. And so we'll see. Now, Pat Mahomes, what's the latest on him? Are you keeping a daily tab on what's going on with him?
You know, high ankle sprain, QB. They'll shoot him up. They'll get him ready. He'll be 70%. But I'll take Pat Mahomes at 70% over just about any other quarterback going at 100 right now. Yeah. So, I mean, credit to him. But I got questions about the Bills. Where was Rousseau? Where was Oliver? Where were these guys? They are not built for snow. It hurts Josh Allen when he tries to run. And Allen just tries to do too much, QB. Poor Josh. I mean, I think he feels like sometimes it's 1 versus 11. And I think he just tries to do too much. So we'll put a wrap on the Bills for the year. It's just another disappointment. But Cincinnati, San Francisco, and Philadelphia.
I wouldn't consider it. I mean, is it disappointing? Yes, if you're a Bills fan, but you lost to a very good football team. Oh, it's not like they got upset.
No, but they've got 1 goal at Buffalo right now, just like But listen, but then you go over to the NFC and you've got a matchup that it's a coin flip, dude. I don't know. I mean, we've been talking about San Francisco. But when Hurts and that offense get going in Philly, dude, it's going to be a great showdown between that offense and that front 7 in San Francisco and their defensive unit, man. Oh, that's going to be just on a great game to watch if you like football.
Yeah, it should be 4 really good teams battling to get to the Super Bowl this weekend. Are you in the market to buy or sell your home? Doreen Weavy, a realtor, Caldwell Banker, M. Parish will value the fast, friendly, reliable service. Give her a call today at 352-562-1411 to help your dreams come true. Don't forget the second portion of today's show. Kyle Crooks will take over. Well, he will come in. We'll call for the right-hander to come in and relieve, and he will have Eric Fawcett from GatorCountry.com. What are you drinking, JC? Is that your new health kit?
It's my new drink. Yeah, I'm off the 5-hour energy. This is BAI. It's the best. It's the healthiest. My app told me that. So get into that, QB. It's got 10 calories, no sugar. It's a little stevia in there, but it's mostly plant-based, QB. I'm teaching you something right now. You need to learn this stuff while you live on the road in a hotel eating, hotel food.
We very well better, boss.
I'm sure you do.
I'm shocked. I am shocked.
You're in Texas, man. They do it right there. They do it right. Everything.
Well, that has nothing to do with the league. Has chefs that cook for each team, so it has nothing to do with where the hell we are.
Well, it's a great place, man. Good for you. The league's taking care of you guys. It's amazing to me that you guys are all centralized, and then you fly to your hometowns or, I guess, appointed towns to play a game and then fly back. I just learned that. That's a lot of traveling, man. I thought you'd be, in Orlando for. Well, it's flying every weekend, QB. Is that good?
No, it's not necessarily. Not if you play the Arlington team. You freaking get on a bus and go down the road.
That's true.
Literally, I could hit driver, 3-wood pitching wedge and hit the what they call it, Choctaw Stadium, the old Ranger Stadium where Arlington plays from our hotel.
I know exactly where
I could literally walk to the game.
Are you in the Lowe's or the Sheraton? Where are you at?
We're in. I'm not going to reveal where we are.
Oh, okay. Well,
we may have people coming and wanting autographs and stuff. We're not signing autographs here.
They got to get some pictures with Guardians from Orlando.
Yeah. So everybody has their own hotel and their own practice facility.
Okay.
So, but yeah, the Arlington has they have it made because they're practicing and all their meetings are in their home ballpark. So
it's unreal.
They're catering to Bob Stoops and his staff.
Well, that's
his squad. So it is what it is. It'll be a good time. So we'll see how it goes.
No doubt. Go to Texas Live if you ever get some free time.
We've had people go there. I just hadn't had time.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. QB, I beat you in golf. I had John Rahm last week.
I didn't even see who won the tournament. Who won it?
John Rahm. But your guy Kim finished tied for 5th, and Cameron Young tied for 13th. So you had 2 out of 3 in the top.
Well, then I probably had my cumulative is probably better than yours, right?
It was, yeah. But I picked.
Okay. Well, you're supposed to have a scoring system for who finishes the highest. Okay, good. So speaking of that, we have golf picks. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte surrounding areas. Visit Ju Young Kim playing in this one? Ju Young Kim playing in this one?
I mean, I don't know why he wouldn't. What else has he got to do?
I mean, he's 20. He can't be tired, right?
No, hell no. No, he's.
I don't see him on the list though.
I mean, you're gonna literally pick him every week, QB? Is that the way?
I love that kid. I love him. I'll go caddy for him right now. All right, give me Colin Morikawa.
Oh, that's who I was gonna pick. Doggone it! You pulled him out of my pocket. Colin Morikawa, by the way, finished second last week at the tournament. I'm going to take Jason Day. He plays Torrey Pines very well.
All right, give me another Californian, Max Homa.
Yeah, that's a good pick there. Yeah, those guys, they really eat up that grass over there, and I think they're usually favored. Now, Schauffele, last week I had him. He withdrew in the second round. Must have been that issue that you were talking about.
He's got a back issue.
Yeah, it must have been that. So it's really hard to go with him. I can't do it. I want to, but I can't do it. So my third pick and probably the eventual winner will be, you look at these rosters of players. There's just so many guys that don't play every week, and yet they're playing in these tournaments. I'm going to go with a name that's not that popular, but he always seems to be around the top 10 in these kinds of tournaments, and that's Kevin Streelman. I want to take Kevin Streelman. Okay.
Well, I just looked through the field and I did it real quick. I don't see
Tony Finau. You can get him.
I don't see my man Ju Young Kim. So I'm going to go with my second favorite South Korean, Sun Jae-im.
Oh my God. You have a Korean golfer. I mean, it's like,
Hey, they're taking over the PGA Tour, by the way.
Texas Cattle and Sun Jae-im. John Rahm is in this. Justin Thomas is in this.
So, okay, JC, I got to ask you a question. I had Edgar Thompson on the program on Tuesday.
I watched that.
He's a big golfer. He covers all the golf for the Orlando Sentinel. Are you aware that
I like it.
The LIV is having an event at Orange County National?
Yes, at the Panther Lake and Crooked Cat. Yeah.
Right, the week before the Masters. Are you going to go down there? I know you love to go to those type of things.
I tell you, I love Orange County National. Played it a bunch of times. Tough course. And I heard that they, according to Edgar, listening to Edgar this morning, they signed a television deal for 4 years with the CW. So that's on all cable systems, I think. But it was something that's good for that tour because they need that partner. But QB, I'm kind of like you in this. I really only take seriously the PGA Tour. There is enough good players, and there's enough young players, and there's enough talent. I mean, it's everywhere on the PGA Tour. I still consider that the number one tour. Some of these guys on the LIV Tour, they're either broken down or they're getting old or they're just – now, that, of course, doesn't include Cam Smith, but, Phil Mickelson, honestly, come on. And so I'm – Brooks Koepka, he can't stay healthy. So he got married. His golf game went to hell. So I think I'm going to just go with the PGA Tour. That's what I'm saying. Nothing wrong with getting married, but this guy has not performed.
All right, JC, before we get out of here, I got to get your thoughts. Alabama, Bill O'Brien is headed to the Patriots. You're looking for an offensive coordinator.
How about
Dan Mullen? The big Al donor in JC, Big Al. I don't know what they're called there.
What do you think?
Big elephant donor. Who do you want as your OC?
Well, I'm not really sure who. Well, I'd love to have. I would have loved to have Cliff Kingsbury, but that's not going to happen. No chance of that. But I'll tell you, I wouldn't be shocked, and this is kind of funny when you think about it. But what if he hires Grantham and Dan Mullen to be the coordinator?
I think Dan would do a good job, but Dan will be taking a pay cut to leave ESPN.
Yes, yeah. Well,
and why would he do that?
And plus, Florida does he forfeit the money that Florida gives him?
No. So the way it works in coaching, if they owe you, I believe the way it works, if they owe you like say $10 million and you get a job for $5 million, they just pay the difference. But he's getting a couple of $1 million from ESPN. He can stay home, play golf with his kid at Reynolds Plantation. Fly to Bristol or wherever they do that.
No, Charlotte.
And not have to sit in meetings like I'm sitting in meetings freaking all day.
100%. Yeah.
But I don't know who they're going to hire.
I don't know either. It's kind of quiet up there. I'm not afraid to see Bill O'Brien go. I do like the way he handled Bryce Young, though, but I don't think he just didn't endear himself, I think, to the fan base there. They didn't have the wide receivers they wanted. The offensive line kind of declined over the last couple of years. And so with that being said, they win 11, 12 games, and I'm talking about this. So I think I'm not really sure, but I'm not worried about them. I think they'll be fine. I'll tell you what I'm keeping my eye on, though, is that damn basketball team, that Nate Oates. Now, here's the thing that scares me about this. Nate Oates signed a contract a couple years ago for Alabama. I think it was $19 million. He's got a program that is on fire right now. They are going to hopefully build him an arena, but Texas is out there, and that scares me because they fired Chris Beard, and Texas can throw as much money as anybody in the country at anybody, but he better realize that going to Austin, where there is a higher expectation, and then coaching in Tuscaloosa, where he's trying to get a building built, are very different things. And I think he likes being in Tuscaloosa, where the pressure may not be as extreme. And look, he's got something going right now. And I don't know why you'd want to disrupt that. So we'll see. But Texas is a great job, I think. And they can throw a lot more money probably at him.
No question about it. All right. Give me those picks again we just chose in golf.
Oh, well, you've got Morikawa, Homa, and Im. And I've got Zalatoris, Streelman, and Jason Day.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. We're gonna probably pick the football games for Friday morning show, I would guess, correct?
Correct.
So that's
here's your homework. Here's your homework assignment.
Oh,
figure out the scoring system.
Oh yeah.
Where we stand through, was it 2 tournaments we've done now? Or 3?
Well, yeah, we have, and I do have that. You had a guy that was -19, -22, and I had a guy that was -27, and had 2 guys that missed the cut. So
I understand that, but I'm talking about you didn't ever give us a point value for
recording in progress. Recording stopped.
It's very complicated at this time of day, QB.
Yeah.
You're really
that's all you have to do. So get it done.
That's all I have to do. I'm very fortunate to know that, by the way. But I'm excited about it. I'm excited. Hopefully Ben wins, and we'll move on.
What is it? The semis or the quarters?
Quarterfinals. So he's in the final 8.
Who's the number 1 seed in the Australian Open?
I gotta think it's Novak Djokovic. And
I didn't know if he was allowed to play because I feel he has to sit out all these tournaments because he's not vaccinated.
It's complete baloney. But in this case, he is the 1 seed. Tsitsipas is the 3 seed, and Casper Ruud, who was the 2 seed, has already lost. He lost in the first round. So I'm sorry, I'm wrong.
The dude that Ben Shelton played last night or is playing now because we're taping. What is he ranked? What's his seed?
Right. So Shelton's playing a guy named Paul, who's not seeded. He's not seeded.
So neither one of them are seeded?
No. So like Ben, he's kind of an underdog going through this. And I was wrong. Joker is not the 1 seed. He's the 4 seed. And I can't look. It's right now not coming up who the 1 is in the men's, but nobody's going to bet against Novak Djokovic. He's clearly, to me, the best player in the world, especially on hard course. So, I think the men are going to be decided, and I think Djokovic wins that. But as far as the women go, there's a bunch of names. We had Jessica Pegula, who was a highly ranked American player, get beat tonight, and that's too bad. And by the way, she's the daughter of the Buffalo Bills owner, and she plays tennis at a high level. And she was beat by a young lady, I think.
What's her name?
Jessica Pegula.
Oh, so the Pegula family owns the
Buffalo
Bills now?
If I'm not mistaken.
I thought Ralph Wilson's family owned it.
No, that they are not the owners. Not anymore.
Sold it.
I think they got out of that game because of the stadium issue. And, they're building the Bills a new stadium on the south side of town, which is where all the lake effect weather comes from.
No, that's wrong.
Yeah, they are.
They're building it right across the street from Orchard Park Stadium.
Which is the south side of town.
Well, that's where there really is no town.
Well, QB, that area is where the lake.
It's a parking lot. So if the stadium is sitting catty corner, they're building the stadium in that parking lot across the street. It'd be like where the swamp is right now. They're building where the track is where they're building their new stadium.
I guess what I was going to make the point of was that on that part of the area, in that area is where you get the worst weather. Whereas if you go north,
I lived there 2 years. You don't have to tell me about it. It's awful.
It is. Yeah.
I've never seen so much snow in my life.
No, it's
All right.
crazy. Yeah.
JC, go enjoy your
tired?
next day or so, and we'll talk to you on Friday for our Peaceland Dental Championship weekend picks.
Okay. I'll see you then, guys. Thank you.
That's JC. Join us on the Titan MR hotline at Chris Doring Mortgage. They do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today, 352-244-0840. We're going to take a timeout. When we come back, we'll be joined by Kyle Crooks. You're watching and listening to Pot Up Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back. We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peaceland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise.
Campus USA Credit Union.
QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Dave & Buster's, eat, drink, play, and watch. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wibby, Realtor Caldwell Banker, Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Aver and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Calling Gator Nation. You're invited to be part of Gator history on Friday, February 10th for the official dedication of Steve Spurrier Way at Celebration Point Promenade in front of Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. Lots of dignitaries and press will be on hand to witness this historic event. And it's open to all who bleed orange and blue. It's the grand unveiling of Steve Spurrier Way. It's all happening Friday, February 10th from 5:30 to 6:15 at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point.
All right, welcome back to Pot Up Matthews in the Morning. Kyle Crooks here on the second half of the show, joined by a very, very special guest, Eric Fawcett, Gator Country. Also, you might know him, hosting the very popular Florida basketball podcast, Florida Basketball Hour. I'm a fan of that show for sure, and I'm definitely a fan of this guy's work. If you haven't followed Eric, he follows this Florida basketball team in a very interesting way. His articles are very in-depth, uses analytics, but makes them very digestible. So if you want to get a little bit different coverage of Florida basketball in a positive way, Eric's your guy. He does an outstanding job. Eric, how you doing, man?
I'm great. That was such a kind intro. I really appreciate it. And I also, that's something I've always aimed to do ever since I started writing about analytics at a, quote unquote football school like Florida. Even I had some questions of, would there be a market for this kind of writing and coverage? Even I had some concerns and clearly there is. So I would say, digestible analytics would be a great kind of buzzword for the stuff I like to do, talking about the team. And it's great to be on Talking Basketball. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you do great work. And all right, so let's talk about this Gator basketball team. For the last 5 they've won was a game, Eric, I would say they had to have against Mississippi State on the road. You finally get off to a good start. You're up 11-0 as opposed to being down 11-0, which has plagued this team throughout the year. Quad 1 win. Where do you see this team is at right now heading into, I would say, a must-win game tonight against South Carolina?
I think the biggest thing for me regarding this basketball team, and we can kind of start with where they were at the beginning of the season to where they are now. I think at the beginning of the season, they just really lacked identity. And I don't say this to be disrespectful or coy, but the fact of the matter is to start the season, they weren't very good offensively. and they weren't very good defensively. And now we are still seeing some of those struggles offensively, but it is very clear that this team has an identity, and that's on the defensive end. And we're seeing it in these last couple of weeks, where even though they're struggling offensively, they're taking immense pride on the defensive side of the basketball. And there's games like this one against Mississippi State where they have a long dry spell offensively, but because their defense gave them the cushion, they were able to win. And I even looking at some of their closer losses, 2 in Auburn, 2 in Oklahoma, to Texas A&M twice, they lost those games, but they were very close, and it's because their defense kept them in the game. And I think to see this defensive identity blossoming, the fact that really over the last month and a half, they've been playing like a top 5 defensive team in the country. It gives you some hope. Again, they've got to figure out the offensive side of the basketball, but to take away, something to take away from that Mississippi State game is just that, like, man, this team has a defensive identity, that the players buy into that. And even on nights where it's a little bit of a rock fight and things are getting really difficult offensively, their defense is going to keep them in games and ultimately win some games. So I'm just really happy to see that this team knows exactly who they are and the players look bought in.
And Eric, when you pop on the tape and you watch the film, from Todd Golden's approach, what do you like defensively about specifically maybe what they do on the defensive end? What do you see when you pop on that tape?
So again, I'll reference early in the season when they weren't playing so well. They're playing a lot more aggressively. Players that are kind of one pass away, closest to the ball, we're playing high and trying to deny ball pressure. People will remember watching, these Florida State teams play that love to deny ball pressure and make it hard for an offense. They were trying to play kind of very aggressively. And I just don't know if they exactly have the horses for that. This Gators team isn't super long, isn't super athletic, isn't super physical. Again, I'm not to say that they're not super undersized. They're not unathletic, but I wouldn't say that they're at the elite level in the SEC. So they've totally made a shift in the last kind of month or so to be a little bit more conservative, I'll say, packing it in and playing in the gaps. And we're seeing that it's very difficult for some of these guards that are very athletic and quick in the SEC to get to the rim. And I think a perfect example of that was you look at the first Texas A&M game when the Gators lost, and Tyrese Radford and Wade Taylor each had 17 apiece when the Gators were playing a little bit more aggressively. You look at the second matchup when the Gators were making a more concerted effort to pack the paint, and you see that they each had like 8 apiece. So they're starting to really slow down these guards, and for a lot of these SEC teams, it's the guards that are the engine. And I think that prototypically, and this is where the Gators have had massive success, a lot of teams that are going to pack the paint like that to try to protect the rim, the trade-off is that you're going to give up a lot of threes. But that has not been the case with the Gators, who, because they're playing conservative, they're sitting in the gaps, but it's making for kind of, I'll say, predictable defensive rotations where the Gators know, okay, I'm going to sit in the gap for this drive, and I know if the opponent makes this pass, I need to get out to this shooter. So the Gators are right now, they're 29th in the country in 3-point attempts against, which is a very good stat. You don't want to have a lot of 3-point attempts against. So right now the Gators are 1, protecting the paint, and 2, protecting the 3-point line. And hey, if you protect the paint and you protect the 3-point line, you're going to have a ton of success. Yeah. And that's exactly what we're seeing.
Yeah, I told everybody that Eric would really break it down for the people, and he does. That's why I wanted to make sure I got Eric on the podcast. Hey, Gator fans, come honor Florida legend Steve Spurrier, as Steve Spurrier Way is officially unveiled on February 10th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. at the Promenade in front of Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point. Go Gators. I want to ask you about Kyle Lofton. He didn't have a great start to the year, but he's been good in SEC play. The other game with Myron Jones, 11 assists and no turnovers. I think he only has 3 turnovers in SEC play. What have you liked about Kyle Lofton? Have you seen him get more comfortable now as the point guard of this team?
Well, Kyle Lofton was always kind of an interesting get for the Gators, in my opinion, because of course we know that Todd Golden has been, branded as this analytics mind. He's got Jonathan Sapphire on staff, who's analytics mind. And it's interesting because the take of Kyle Lofton, at least in my opinion, was not an analytics take. It was a very X factor, gut feel. This guy's a savvy vet, because, there are deficiencies in his game that most analytic people would like. He's not a good finisher. We just talked about defensively how the Gators want to take away the rim, take away 3-point shots. Those are the shots you're trying to get offensively. And Kyle Lofton has never been a great finisher at the rim, and he's never been a great 3-point shooter. So, but what he does have is loads of experience. Played for people who are not aware, he came from St. Bonaventure, where he functionally never left the floor. He averaged, around 38 minutes a game, and so he played. So this is a guy who's just as grizzled and veteran as it comes. And again, I think we have seen this season that there are going to be some deficiencies. He's not someone who's super quick, and he's not someone who's going to separate and create space. He's not an excellent shooter, but again, he is very savvy and experienced, a willing passer. And we're starting to see, whereas early in the season, I still think he was. And again, I think this is partially due to the fact that this team has struggled offensively, and he's the point guard, the veteran, the leader. He kind of felt like he maybe had to take on some of that load. So we saw him forcing some shots that were not great looks for probably any player, much less, Kyle Lofton, who's not a great scorer. But then in recent games, we're starting to see, like you mentioned, those turnover numbers are down. The assist numbers have been steady, solid. And I think that that's a player that's just being a lot more comfortable within himself. And again, the offense is still struggling. So I think if the Gators offense as a whole was clicking a little bit better, your point guard's probably going to look better, especially your veteran one. So, if things were a little bit more cohesive, I bet he would look a little bit better. But I also think at the same time, this is a team that has now started to kind of, that the offense is a struggle, and they kind of know it, but they're still starting to play a little bit more conservative and saying like, hey, if our offense isn't great, what we can't do is start forcing stuff. We still have to just kind of play within our system and live with the results. And again, the Gators playing a little bit more structured and conservative. While their results aren't great, they're not throwing the ball away. With the, they don't have bad turnover numbers, which is, at least while you're missing shots, you can battle on the glass, you can get back in transition, which you really can't do is give a bunch of live ball turnovers. So even for an offense that has struggled, they're still playing responsibly, and that's what keeps you in a game on the road at Mississippi State and gets you a win. And I think that's where this, having a grizzled leader like Kyle Lofton, who's really as experienced as anyone in the country in terms of a minutes played load, where he brings some value.
I'm interested to get your take on Myron Jones, because he comes here. We all know the numbers he had at Penn State as a shooter, and he just can't seem to get the shot to go down early in his Gator tenure. He's still struggling as a shooter, but he's affecting the game in a lot of different ways, and it's earning him a decent amount of minutes. When you look at Myron Jones, the enigma that has been Myron Jones, I guess, what stands out to you about how this whole deal has played out to this point for him here at Florida?
Well, again, this is something I don't like, patting myself on the back for and saying like, see, I told you. But when the Gators got him in the transfer portal, and as anyone who has watched him knows, his shooting mechanics are not typical. Even when he had success at Penn State, he was notoriously very, very streaky. He'd go 0 for 4, 0 for 3, 0 for 1, and then he'd go 7 for 9 in the next game. And then suddenly his percentages looked really good. And again, there's value in that, absolutely, because if he heats up and goes 5 for 6 on the 3-point line, he might win you a game. But there was always times, even when his overall percentage was good, that he was going to have a lot of off games. And I think we saw that. And even last season, it was one of those things where, he really struggled to shoot the ball, greatly, but he ended the season 32% from 3, which is not good, but it's not horrible, because he got really hot in a couple of games. But the fact of the matter with him, especially last year, was within the scheme the Gators were playing defensively, he struggled, and he wasn't someone who had great ball handling ability. So when he wasn't hitting his shots, he wasn't bringing you value in other ways. So then you fast forward to this year, and he just looks like a completely different player defensively. And I think a lot of that is the scheme. And it is what we talked about earlier with the Gators being a little bit more conservative. Last year, the Gators had a much more aggressive scheme that had Myron Jones having to switch on to a lot of big guys, having to sprint a lot from the hoop back to the corner, long closeouts. And he's not a great athlete, not super quick. It's not super long. So that style of defense didn't really suit him. But what the Gators are doing right now, he looks fantastic, and he's using that kind of veteran savviness and being in the right places at all the right times. Like there's been a couple, his steal numbers are starting to climb, and you look at some of the steals he got, and it's almost like opponents are throwing the ball straight into his hands because he's in the right spot. So he's been excellent there. And then my goodness, a guy who really struggled last year to bring the ball up the floor and had some pretty crushing moments, really, where he was just trying to dribble the ball up, rather in a rather normal sense, and just had his pocket picked by SEC opponents. You fast forward to now, and he's really the backup point guard for this team, who's loading up with assists, and again, like you mentioned with Lofton, keeping his turnovers low. So I just think he looks like an entirely different player, and I think he deserves a ton of credit for it. Here's a guy who was really branded coming into Florida as a shooter who didn't do much else, and I think that was still largely an accurate way to evaluate his game, and now he's someone that impacts the game even when his shot isn't falling. So I think that is one area where definitely the staff deserves a lot of credit for putting someone in a position to have a lot of success, and it's great to see for someone who had a little bit of a tumultuous stretch last year, and even to start the year, it was kind of a question of like, hey, how much is this guy going to play? What's his role? Well, he knows his role now. Secondary ball handler, working really well within Florida systems, and looks excellent defensively.
Yeah, absolutely. And Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Visit them at peachlanddental.com. And join us on Friday for our Peachland Dentistry, JC, and the QB weekend picks. Kwesi Reeves, he's a guy who needed to see some shots go down the other night against Mississippi State. Obviously, he's ultra athletic. He's a guy that can be streaky, but very good defensively. Kwesi, boy, they need to get him and Will Richard going offensively. If those two can start to knock down some shots, that would eliminate some of these offensive issues Florida's having, right?
Yeah, I think Todd Golden even said it maybe yesterday in his press conference that like when shots go in, he looks like a lot better coach. I think he said something along the lines of. And I do think you look at a player like Kwesi Reeves, where when he came to Florida as a freshman last year, his kind of #1 skill was shot making, and especially kind of off the dribble. And I think when you look at a team this year that struggles to score, and you see someone like Kwesi Reeves, whose best skill might be shot creation, you're kind of like, hey, why can't this guy kind of get going? And again, I think one of the issues for Kwesi is that he's someone who's like a tough shot maker. He loves to shoot off the dribble, but he's not as good as at the simple kind of catch and shoot, get the ball swung to him, square up and fire. And I think that's a bit of a product of when he played in high school. He played at a smaller high school. He didn't play at the highest level, so he took a lot of shots. He was seeing double teams all the time, and it was all about acrobatic finishes and tough shots. And right now the Gators need someone who, again, can catch a ball off a rotation, square up and shoot. And I think it's almost something like, again, they're very different players, but that was kind of the situation that the Gators had with Trey Mann, especially as a freshman, and then last year, where he was someone who was excellent with step backs, excellent at creating space, but he wasn't good at just simple catch and shooting. And that's what you kind of need in college. A lot of the times you need someone to create a shot. Of course, that's a very valuable skill, but you also need guys to knock it down. And I think for Reeves, it's just a situation if he needs to find his kind of offense when the ball gets swung to him around the perimeter, and not be a guy that the ball comes to. He looks at it, he slows down, looks at his defender, and then tries to break him down and maybe end with a step back. We just need more assertiveness. I think he's got to be someone who goes downhill and uses that athleticism that you mentioned, because I think sometimes he gets a little bit too much into like, oh, I'm going to try to beat someone with skill. And again, he has skill, don't get me wrong. But when you're 6'6" or 6'7", bouncy, explosive, you'd like to see him maybe a quick pump fake, but oftentimes you'd like to see him just catch that ball, rip and get to the rim, or get that ball swung to him and him take that shot immediately. It's just, you can kind of see the processing is maybe a little bit slow right now. And if you're looking for optimism for why can this team get better offensively, I think one of the things you can look at is like, well, they've got arguably their most pure offensive talent, and Reeves hasn't really gotten going yet. So if you're looking for like, how could this team turn around, they've got to do maybe some different things schematically, but you can also look at a player like Reeves and just say like, hey, if he gets going, the Gators suddenly have the talent of a top 50 player who is a top 50 player largely because of his offensive ability. And if that guy gets going with the way the defense is going, that can win you some games.
Yeah, Reeves is the definition, I think, of the next factor for this team moving forward. At Comfort Temp, comfort is our business. Peace of mind is our promise. Beat the summer heat.
But, there's, I think fans, and again, this is what fans do every year. They get really excited about anyone that their team brings in the transfer portal. And I do think there is something I will often write about at Gator Country, is how transfers are almost always overvalued by coaches, by fans, for media. And there's a lot of people that were like, great, the Gators have their starting, shooting guard. That was a lot of the term, was that, oh, this is going to be, the starting shooting guard who's 6'5", and, there's some NBA buzz about him. And I was the one who was kind of like, let's just hold on a little bit, because he came from Belmont in a league, the Ohio Valley, which is not a very good league. And Will Richard was playing primarily power forward at 6'5", and he wasn't someone who was able to create a lot of shots. His shooting numbers weren't great. And again, I will give that all under the big umbrella of he was only a freshman last year. So this is not your normal mid-major to high major transfer. That's a graduate transfer or a veteran. This was someone who played 1 year at Belmont, was productive, but I would say still a little bit unproven. So I was kind of like telling people to pump the brakes. I think this is a great get for Florida, but maybe not this year. Maybe for next year, he'll be the starter that, we're seeing right now. So for him to assert himself so much on the defensive side, I think that's very impressive, because you know what, like, I don't think he's a great athlete. He's an okay athlete. And, I think he's got a good frame. He doesn't have an elite frame. He's 6'5". He's not, 6'7" with a 7-foot wingspan, but he plays like these like big, future NBA wings. So for him to really be like one of the main pieces, like if I had to say like what is contributing to Florida's great success on the defensive end, and again, you would never want to peg that on one player, and it really is everyone contributing, but like a lot of that work is being done by Will Richard, whether it's on the ball or in the help, one pass away, digging down on these drives. Like, I think he's just been tremendous defensively. And again, to say a freshman from Belmont or a freshman from the Ohio Valley Conference last year is now suddenly like a huge part of the defensive identity of a team that's been playing like a top 5 defensive team over the last month and a half. Like, that's again, for someone who, I was the one saying like, hey, just like pump your brakes, guys. Like, this is a great player, but he's young. To now being like, no, he doesn't look young out there. I guess that would be the best way to put it. And he, of course, started the season blistering hot from 3. That cooled off, and I think that's probably just, of course, regression to a little bit more of what he was. Again, someone who was a slightly below average shooter at Belmont last year. But again, overall, I'd say that's the player that I thought would come off the bench. I thought he'd be Florida's 7th or 8th man, and would be a really exciting piece for the future. Now the future is now, and he's been a really good player.
If you got joint pain in your knees, shoulders, hip, or back that won't go away, you need to check out QC Kinetics for long-lasting relief. Not surgery, drugs, or downtime. Schedule your free consultation at QC Kinetics, with locations in Ocala and now open in Gainesville. Number to call, 352-400-4550. Okay, South Carolina here tonight. They got Jackson, who could be a future lottery pick here, coming to town. Team that overall can't score. They're like 241st in offensive efficiency. Do you see this hopefully not being a game tonight? Can South Carolina keep this one close? I know the Gators, that's all they do. They play close games. They play one possession games late. How do you see this one playing out tonight?
Yeah, I think, of course, when you see a Gators offense that's still trying to kind of find their way, to look at a defense, like, that's one thing with South Carolina. Like, I think, like you mentioned, they're 241st in offense. I think they're 244th in defense. So it's not unfortunate. Like, and again, rebuild year, first year under Lamont Paris, who came over from Chattanooga, but they are struggling on both sides of the ball right now. And again, so for Florida, who struggles offensively, seeing a team that's the worst defensive team in the league, that might be something to get right. I think one thing that is a little bit of a concern is GG Jackson, who you mentioned. I think he was the 6th rated recruit in the class, and 6'9", bruising forward, can create shots, and he kind of just decided to stay home. He's from Columbia, so he decided to stay home to play for this team, despite the fact that it was a transition year for the Gamecocks and probably knew things were going to be a little bit rough. But I do think that is where Florida's thin kind of front line is going to be potentially a concern. I haven't seen an update, yet. Well, it's obviously early today, but on Alex Fudge, who Golden mentioned yesterday was doubtful for this game. So, and what South Carolina will do often is stick a 7-footer Josh Gray at center. And it's then put GG Jackson, who's 6'9" and 215 pounds. They'll put him at the power forward spot, and a lot of that is just to put the requisite 7-footer on the floor to make sure that the other team's center can't guard GG Jackson, and make another team's power forward guard him. So if that was Alex Fudge, then that would be an awesome matchup of two guys with NBA size and athleticism, and the Gators probably feel a little bit better about that. But Golden hinted that it was going to be Will Richards at 6'5" and Kwesi Reeves at 6'6" or 6'7" and skinny, having to play most of the power forward minutes. And I think that's a matchup that's going to concern you a little bit. But other than that, I think the Gators are just going to suffocate this team defensively. Gamecocks struggle to shoot, don't have a lot of shot creation outside of GG Jackson. I think the Gators are just going to sit in the gaps, protect the rim, and they're going to dare South Carolina to make shots from 3. And that's something that they have not done all season long. So hopefully the Gators can get a little bit of momentum going with this one.
Bruce Oger State Farm Office is a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with your right insurance options for you and your family. Visit ugrainsurance.com or call us at 352-240-1779. The schedule coming up, it's Murderer's Row. There's one of two ways you can look at it. You can say, wow, I don't know how we're going to get through this, or you have a plethora of quad 1 opportunities for your NCAA tournament resume. I had it written down here. So they got obviously Kansas State coming up, top 5 team on the road. Now, by the way, Keontae Johnson is playing outstanding. It's incredible to see. I tweeted it out the other night just to see him playing at the level he's at right now after not even thinking he'd ever play again. Then you got Tennessee at home, and the only non-ranked opponent besides South Carolina in the stretch have to go to Rupp and play at Kentucky. And then you got number 2 Alabama, which I think is probably the best team in the country right now. How many games, Eric, do you think you need to get out of this stretch? Can you get 2 out of this stretch?
I mean, first of all, I think you're going to be in the broadcast industry for a long time, and I'm not sure how many times you're going to say going to an unranked Kentucky team on the road. So that is it's still crazy to hear, but I think the Gators need to. I mean, it's just the fact of the matter is they didn't get things done in non-conference play. The start of conference play has been all right, but the Gators are at a position where if they want to make the NCAA tournament, they have to steal a game. They have to start stealing games they aren't expected to win. So it's tough to say like, oh, you've got to go steal one, against Tennessee. But like at some point, like, yeah, the Gators have to get Bama, or they have to get Tennessee here, or Kansas State is a great opportunity as well. I think the one you're maybe looking at as a possibility, and I know it's tough because the Gators have had so many issues with Tennessee of late, but Tennessee is a team that is the best defense in the country, and their offense leaves a lot to be desired. So I think that's one of those games that the Gators could get in a rock fight, and that's going to be a game that would benefit the team that's not ranked as high, I would say, in the Gators. So if you're looking at the one, I think the Gators, I'm not even sure I'd necessarily pick the Gators to win, but if you're looking at what is a marquee win that the Gators could get with their really difficult SEC slate, I'm looking at the Tennessee game and saying like, man, maybe the Gators could slug this one out 61-59 and get a win that they desperately need.
Yeah, and again, it's what makes this game here tonight a must-have heading into this stretch. And look, you got to grab some of these if you want to build your NCAA tournament resume. There's no way around it, and you have the opportunity to create a pretty solid resume. Celebration Point is where the Gators come to celebrate with premium brands like Nike, International Diamond Center, Dave & Buster's, Palmetto Moon Escapology, Visor's Rooftop, and the HBC's restaurant Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, the #1 celebrity polished casual restaurant in America. We will see you at Celebration Point. where Gators come to celebrate. All right, Eric, we'll wrap it up here, but where can fans read your work, listen to your work? You have a great podcast. You have a lot of great articles you're doing. Again, this is, for me, this is one of the top guys, folks, when it comes to Gator basketball that you want to follow and you want to read. So, Eric, what are you working on, and where can fans find your work?
Oh, well, of course, I think, working on a Gator country, I want to see how this team can score. So I'll be writing something about their offense, where the struggles have been and where they can get better soon. So you can find that at Gator country. My Twitter is Eric Fawcett _. And then I have the podcast Florida Basketball Hour with Neil Blackman, where we have conversations very similar to the one we just had. So we'll have to maybe do a home and get you on ours, Kyle. So thank you again for having me.
Eric, great stuff, my man. And again, continue to read and listen to his work. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll have Graham Hall as my guest on the second half of the show. Shane will be back as well. Enjoy the game tonight, everybody, and peace out.